Most of us will, at some point, place our survival in the hands of a stranger, simply because of the title they hold. We grant a high degree of authority to those in hospital coats or religious robes, trusting they will use their power to protect us. Samir is a celebrated surgeon. In his community, he represents the leading edge of medical science, a man whose hands are trusted to navigate the most delicate human anatomy. In a remote village, the priest Agaram commands a different kind of respect. His neighbors believe his spiritual rituals are the only thing standing between them and the devastation of drought and disease. This dynamic creates a profound vulnerability. It relies on the assumption that these protectors view their followers as human beings, rather than raw materials for their own hidden ambitions. Samir used his privileged hospital access to feed a grim obsession. He began stealing unclaimed corpses in the dead of night, dragging them into his private lab for experiments no ethics board would ever approve. Agoram's methods were more overt, yet far more brutal. To maintain the illusion of his agricultural miracles, he demanded a horrific price from the villagers, the ritual sacrifice of their own children. The deity at the center of these rituals was Moloch, a figure depicted with the head of a bull and a hollow furnace-like belly designed for consumption by fire. These parallel descents into madness illustrate the consequences of unchecked authority and the silence of the victims they exploit. Samir's medical training eventually gave way to an obsession. He began to see the human body not as a living patient to be healed, but as a technical failure that he, and he alone, could fix by conquering death itself. When early attempts to reanimate corpses failed to produce a sentient response, he turned his focus inward. He constructed a specialized glass chamber, attempting to pull a physical clone directly from his own reflection. His mirror project was built on a specific, cold logic. He believed that a human life was merely a collection of biological parts and data that could be artificially duplicated through the right chemical and physical triggers. The horror of this theory is realized when the reflection actually takes on a physical form. The mirrored figure separates from the glass and steps into the room as a living, independent entity. Samir is initially blinded by his own success. He is convinced he has achieved total mastery over human life, surpassing the constraints of normal biological reality. He failed to realize that by treating life as a mechanical process, he had created a vessel without a conscience, a vacuum that his dark reflection was more than willing to fill. Agoram maintained his grip through psychological leverage. He weaponized the villagers' deepest fears, convincing a grieving widow like Sarla that the loss of her child was the only way to ensure the survival of the rest of the community. This diagram shows the cruel transaction Agoram enforced. He convinced the village that agricultural survival was directly linked to the fire of the idol, turning their morality into a mandatory debt paid in blood. The isolation of this system is interrogated by Rapesh, a government official who arrives to investigate why the village school is suddenly empty. Rakesh relies on modern data and rational questioning. This investigative approach presents a direct threat to the village's culture of silence and supernatural dread. Agoram's hubris reaches its most extreme point when he begins integrating the remains of his victims into his own rituals, believing he has moved beyond the status of a mere priest. Both the surgeon and the priest rely on the same strategy, the complete isolation of their victims. Whether they use an unclaimed body or an impoverished child, they ensure no one is left to witness their crimes or challenge their word. Agoram's influence vanishes the moment Rakesh's investigation provides a rational explanation for the village's tragedies. The priest is exposed not as a savior, but as a predator. The villagers' fear is instantly replaced by a collective, violent awakening. They turn their combined rage against the man who spent decades manipulating their grief. In the lab, Samir faces a mirrored betrayal. His own creation violently forces him into the mirror's void, effectively erasing the creator to take his place in the physical world. While external logic dismantled the priest's power, the surgeon was destroyed by the very unnatural life he fought to create. Once the mask of authority is removed and the leverage of fear is gone, the resulting fall is final. Trapped in the mirror, Samir's body undergoes a slow, agonizing transformation. His tissue hardens and his features flatten until he is nothing more than a living, sentient sheet of glass. His existence becomes entirely parasitic. When the clone chooses to injure itself in the real world, it is the trapped Samir who feels the physical toll of every cut and bruise. Agaram meets his end at the hands of those he oppressed. The villagers hurl him into the same sacrificial furnace he used to murder their children, ending his physical life in the flames. But in the village, the cycle persists. Years later, Agaram's son exhumes the idol, using his father's dark rituals to bind the priest's spirit into the metal, ensuring the nightmare continues. Neither man is granted the release of death. The surgeon who tried to shape flesh is reduced to a static object, and the manipulator of souls is transformed into a trapped relic. Justice may eventually arrive for those who abuse their power, but the scars they leave on the world are permanent. The legacies of those who try to play God are not easily broken.